Hello, everyone. This is Ray Sammy from Jennifer Schaus & Associates. Welcome to the 2018 edition of Webinar Wednesdays, brought to you live from Washington, D.C., and hosted by Jennifer Schaus & Associates. Our topics cover all things related to U.S. federal government contracts. Thanks for joining us today. Our panelists are industry experts and include consultants, attorneys, accountants, and other professionals who work in the federal contracting sector. Reminder, our webinars are all complimentary and are held every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. They are all recorded and can be viewed on our webinar tab or on our YouTube channel. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, so please send your questions directly to the speaker. Her information is available on the last slide. A little bit about us. We're a Washington, D.C. based consulting firm serving both product and service companies worldwide. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles and contract administration. We can help you with GSA schedules, proposal writing, 8A certification, and more. We host events throughout the year, including training classes, so please visit our website or sign up for a complimentary newsletter to stay current. Today, we are fortunate enough to be joined by Karen Long of Streamline Government Contracts. Karen will be discussing subcontracts, 10 important keys. You can see some of Karen's background on this page. Thanks for joining us today, Karen. Let's dig into subcontracts, 10 important keys.
Thanks, and I appreciate being asked to speak today. So let me just go ahead and dive right in. First, I want to be clear that this presentation is not a comprehensive list of what to review in a subcontract, but a starting point. And I'm giving this presentation from the subcontractor's perspective because they have the biggest challenge. Next slide. So the first thing is to review the teaming agreement carefully. In almost all cases, the teaming agreement is terminated after the subcontract is issued. Recently, we saw where the teaming agreement was incorporated into the subcontract, but that is definitely the exception and not the rule. So you want to ensure that anything that is applicable to the subcontract that was negotiated during the teaming agreement is included in the subcontract. Next slide, please. The scope of work and work share, and again, generally this is from the teaming agreement. So is the statement of work the same that was negotiated? And if there was a minimum work share promised, is that included? And is the statement of work that your company will cover too restrictive? Recently, another example is one of our clients asked us to ensure that the statement of work was written so that it was open-ended, so that there was the potential to take on additional labor category and labor category positions in the future if that opportunity arose. Next slide, please. Attachments. Are all the attachments included by reference, such as the non-disclosure agreements, labor category descriptions, FAR flowdowns, and there may be many others. Sometimes the statement of work is an attachment as well. Depending on the language in the NDA, sometimes it can be incorporated by reference, which then you don't need to redefine what the proprietary information is, etc. And ensure that the attachments are listed in the subcontract and again incorporated by reference. And then also equally important is that you actually have the files or the documents. Sometimes I find that the attachments are listed, but then when our clients receive the email, they're actually not included. So so you need to ensure that they're actually there. Especially, I notice this happens for whatever reason with the FAR flowdown clauses a lot. Next slide, please. Termination for convenience. So again, from the subcontractor's perspective, what I normally do, of course, if the government terminates the contract, for the prime contract for convenience, the prime contractor is going to need to terminate the subcontractors, the subcontract for convenience. However, and again, in this competitive environment, some situations we've run across is that when the subcontractor doesn't want to bid with the prime on the recompete, they've tried or wanted to terminate the subcontract for convenience, or on a current work, the prime has been concerned that the subcontractor would gain too much intelligence for the recompete, and therefore they have tried to terminate for convenience. So backing up a little bit, when reviewing subcontracts, what we add is that the prime can only terminate the subcontract for convenience if the government terminates the prime contract for convenience. And this adds a lot of protection for the subcontractor. Next slide, please. Pricing. So you want to check to ensure that the pricing matches, that there are no typos in the pricing, and or that pricing was not intentionally changed. Sometimes the prime may have to negotiate with the government and reduce their prices, but the subcontractor just needs to ensure that they are on board with that, and that they agree to that. And we didn't talk about it on this slide here, but on a related note, payment terms. Obviously, what are the, equally if not more important, what are the payment terms? When are invoices due? And so that is also, again, related to pricing and just as important. Next slide. Other direct costs, travel, and overtime. So usually someone from the prime must authorize in writing if travel and ODCs for specific instances are approved, if it's allowable at all. And then in that case, a lot of times, the prime will ask for a travel estimate or an ODC estimate, depending on what the item is. So this is something that the PM and the staff should be very clear on and very informed about. This should be covered during an internal kickoff. And the program staff should understand that the subcontract is going to take precedence over anything a project manager says verbally, during, giving permission. Again, one, do they even have permission? Again, need to follow that approval process, make sure that's followed, and make sure that, again, the appropriate person has authorized it. Next slide. So indemnification and limits of liability. We could spend a lot of time talking about this in more depth. We could probably spend 20 minutes talking about this just on this slide. But the point is that you want to ensure that the company is protected and that these clauses are included into the subcontract. Next slide. Non-solicitation of employees. And recently, we read a non-solicitation clause that said neither party could hire the other party's employees, period. There was, and that is too restrictive and would not hold up in court. What it needs to say in order for it to be balanced and for it to be able to hold up is that employees have the right to respond to job advertisements, job boards, attend job fairs, etc., on their own accord. It's simply that either party may not solicit directly the other company's employees. So again, balance is important here. Next slide, please. Audits and reviews. So companies should never be forced to submit proprietary information to the prime. What should be written into the subcontract is if there is a need for an audit, if somebody needs to review accounting records, etc., there should be a provision that it should be able to, the subcontractor should be able to submit the information directly to the government or to a mutually agreed upon third party. And again, I always try to incorporate the mutually agreed upon. It shouldn't just be the prime's choice of who that independent third party is, but it should be a company or organization that is mutually agreed upon. Key 10, points of contact. So last but not least, who are the technical and contracts point of contact, and what is their authority, and how do you reach them? So the technical points of contact are generally the people who manage the contract, the everyday work, the work to be performed, the work to be done. Whereas the contracts point of contact receives the notices, answers the questions, administers the subcontract, can issue modifications, etc. So it's important that you have the correct points of contact, know who has what authority, and that is clearly stated. And of course, generally there is a provision that it can be changed at any time with notification to the other party, and it tells you how that notification can be relayed, including email. So next slide, that's great. So subcontracts, 10 important keys. So in summary, winning is only step one. Executing effectively and managing the contract determines success. And start with a strong subcontract. And by that I mean a contract that is going to protect your company's interests as much as possible. And again, just to reiterate, this was not a comprehensive list of keys, but a short list of keys to begin with. Next slide.
Fantastic. Great presentation and information, Karen. Thank you for sharing your time and knowledge on this topic, and thanks especially to our attendees. If you have any questions, please contact Karen directly with the information you see on the screen in front of you. Next week, we are covering 5 signs the RFP is wired. The full schedule of webinars can be found on our website under the webinar tab. Today's recording will be on our website later this week. Thank you, and this concludes the webinar.